Hola a todos, ¿qué tal? Bueno, toma 3, a ver si nos acompaña la tecnología. Y ay, ¿por qué no me la dejo unir? Bueno, tengo un pequeño problema, voy a hablar en inglés. We have trouble because I can't invite your account, Kamila, if you're listening to me right now. I don't know why I can't invite you to live stream with me. So if you can try log in from another account, from another Instagram account or something like that, so I can let you join in. Mientras tanto, hola a todo el resto. Bien, bueno. Mientras veo si nuestra invitada puede you can ask, can you ask to join in to my live? Because I can't let you join in for some strange reason, but maybe you can. Invite me after this. Okay. I don't know why it's only your account that I can give permission to join in. Okay, so here they're saying that you can scroll to the top of the comments and then you find to request, like a button to request to join to my live. Can you try that? Just scroll. Not there. Okay. Do you have another Instagram account you can log in to try? Maybe it's this account for some strange reason. Can you try logging in from a different Instagram account? Es solo esa cuenta encima. Ok. Si alguien sabe por qué puede ser que no me esté dejando ciertas cuentas y ciertas otras cuentas sí, si alguien me puede responder esa pregunta de los que me estén mirando. Yes, please, if you can borrow some other account, because I don't know why it's only like a couple of accounts that I'm not allowed to send an invite to. If you can try that, that'll be good. Ok. Bueno, vamos a esperar a ver si nuestra invitada puede loguearse desde otra cuenta. Disculpas por este inicio desprolijo, pero estamos teniendo un par de problemas técnicos para poder invitar a nuestra invitada a compartir la pantalla y hacerle la entrevista. También es la primera, creo que es la primera entrevista que hacemos así en modo virtual, así que bueno, ténganme un poco de paciencia. Yes, I'll wait. If you log in from another account, I'll wait for you. Don't worry about it. Okay. Okay, I'll wait for you. Just send me a message from your account when you're ready and I'll try again. Ok. Bueno, mientras tanto sigo mientras esperamos a ver si cambia de cuenta. Si no, si le puedo ofrecer a ver si puede arrancar ella un live y yo me sumo al live, pero intentemos que no. Bueno, disculpas de nuevo por la desprolijidad. Bienvenidos de nuevo a este ciclo de entrevistas. Hay como un poco de ruido, ¿no? Voy a cerrar la ventana. Ok. Bienvenidos a todos, a los que se van sumando a este ciclo de entrevistas de la BIM 2020. Que bueno, básicamente... A ver si se suma. Ah, no, todavía no se echa. Pero quiero ver si me deja invitar a otras cuentas porque... Sí, ok. Ok. Bien, bueno, como estaba comentando, este año la BIM tiene como eje, como temática principal, mirarnos a los ojos. Volverá es el eje central de este año, en el que básicamente lo que trabajamos fue, bueno, lo que trabajaron distintos artistas alrededor de todo el mundo es en el contexto de pandemia, en este contexto raro que nos toca vivir hoy día. Bueno, exhibimos distintos videos, distintas propuestas artísticas que se trabajaron en este periodo, en este nuevo paradigma, y también con una propuesta de un soporte y una exhibición, bueno, virtual. Se sigue sumando gente, pero no sé, no, todavía no. La idea de hoy es entrevistar a Kamila Kuc, artista inglesa, que nos va a estar acompañando para responder un par de preguntas sobre su obra, sobre la obra que expone este año para la BIM. Y bueno, estamos esperando a ver si se puede unir desde otra cuenta, porque la primera no funcionaba bien, no me dejaba invitarla. Y ténganme un poco de paciencia, por favor. Me deja muy pocas. Perdón, ¿alguien que me esté escuchando sabe por qué puede ser que me esté dejando invitar algunas cuentas y otras cuentas no? Si alguien me puede dar una mano con eso, se lo agradecería. Ah,
Right,
hi.
hello.
Yes, finally.
Finally, yes,
Hello.
okay.
Yes.
We are.
Yeah. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm fine, how are you guys?
I'm fine, I'm fine.
Good.
I'm trying to put my phone somewhere it lands on its own.
Right.
Okay, I'm very, very pleased to finally meet you and be able to talk to you.
Yes,
If
me
you,
too. Thank
yes,
you for the
yes,
invitation again.
it's my pleasure. It's our pleasure. If you excuse me, I will make a very short introduction in Spanish, and then I'll start asking you some questions, and we can speak for a bit, if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead. No problem.
Well, bueno, ahora sí, ¿qué tal? Bienvenidos a todos. Ahí, bueno, los que entiendan inglés me van a poder seguir. Pero bueno, como les estaba comentando, este es el ciclo de entrevistas de BIM 2020. Hoy estamos con Kamila Kuc, que nos va a acompañar, nos va a responder un par de preguntas sobre su obra. Y bueno, nada, la entrevista va a ser en inglés, pero pueden comentar preguntas o cosas y voy a tratar de ver si las podemos contestar y demás. Well, Camila, hi. I just asked you before, how are you? I'm a bit nervous because we had a bit of technical issues and, well, but
Well, we're here right now, so relax.
yeah, we are here, and I didn't want to miss the opportunity to like have a chat with you and speak a bit about your work. First question I want to ask you, I would like you to talk a bit about yourself, like a bit to introduce yourself a bit, if you like.
So yes, my name is Kamila Kuc. I'm an artist of Polish origin living in London currently, and this is my second interaction with BIM. The first time was a couple of years ago, and I make mostly moving image work, although I also make some photographs. But yeah, mostly a multimedia artist, I suppose you could say, yes.
You define yourself as a multimedia artist. That's like that's what that like general idea that you think about yourself when you express your art.
Yeah, so mostly film, photography, and more recently, more interest in online platforms too, more interactive projects. But I've started in film and photography, yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I want to ask you about Ochronia #1. It's the piece you're exposing in this year's BIM. First question that comes to mind is why the title, why Ochronia? What does this mean to you, and how it relates to, well, the piece, the artwork?
Mm-hmm. So it's a title that's, I guess you could say it's a neologism. It comes from Greek, like a lot of words do, but it really means, I guess you could define it as a no time or suspended time, or time that in fact is utopian, so certain times that never really perhaps existed. But I was thinking more in context of COVID, and ways in which I think many of us have experienced days will blur into one another. So there's been this term used recently called Blur's Day, which so corresponds with my idea of Uchronia and in time suspended in
Sorry.
space. Mm-hmm.
It froze for a bit, so what you were saying just before we missed it, if you could repeat again.
Okay, so I think I mentioned that for me, Uchronia relates mostly to current circumstances and how perhaps a lot of us feel suspended in time, suspended in space, and not really knowing what's to come, and how we really, how we try or have to negotiate new ways of being in the world with the new circumstance we find ourselves in.
That's very interesting. And talking about the pandemic and all this situation we have to live today. How does this affect your work as an artist?
Sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't hear that.
Yes. How does the pandemic, where we're talking about Corona and how this idea comes from the pandemic context, and you were saying, I want to ask you how the pandemic affects your work as an artist.
I think it affects my work in many different ways. I think on a very basic level, we all feel a huge amount of uncertainty, anxiety, fear, I suppose. And I think that these are the factors that, on the one hand, I don't know, perhaps could motivate some to make work, but for others perhaps are paralyzing, which is why I think, platforms like BIM, I'm really grateful to be part of it, because I think it's a really fantastic way of trying to reconnect or connect with artists, all over the world in the circumstances where, we can't. We can't see each other, we can't touch each other, we can't have in-person meetings, which are, a lot of my work, I guess, is very in my conversation with people, in my contacts with people, going to physical places, feeling the places, staying in places for a while. That's obviously not possible right now. So I think, here BIM's, I suppose, online platform is in many ways, I think, a brilliant way of, in some ways, resisting that, and perhaps the internet itself functioning as a place of resistance where you can connect with other artists through, through sort of the borders that, internet can sort of dissolve in some ways, because we can't travel, but we can travel virtually, right? We can talk to each other virtually. So I think that lack of physical contact and the inability to travel, because my work is also very place specific, I think that affects me the most. That said, I was not actually planning a new project for this year, because I've been editing a work that I've been working on for quite a long time now. So in some ways, being grounded actually was a good idea. So it's the first time that for a long time I haven't actually traveled extensively for a few months, but yeah.
That's very that's very interesting. I'm having a bit of trouble hearing you because you freeze, you get
Right.
paralyzed. But yeah, never mind. I want to ask you. Sorry.
Hopefully, you guys can hear something.
Yeah, no, I did hear everything you said, but I have trouble with like some words. That's it. So it was a silly comment. Never mind. Don't mind me. I'm a bit nervous. That's all.
No need to.
About we're talking about pandemic. We talk about Corona, how we are living this weird situation as artists in the artistic environment. You talk about the macro vision as a tool to explore what we already know. This is already in like one of your statements. What do you consider we should be macro viewing, so to say, as artists or in the artistic environment, or what do you think you macro view as an artist, so to say, is sort of metaphor?
It's a very good question. I think, in the case of my film, I suppose it was the microview is also a metaphor, I suppose, for negotiating our relationships with the world and things that we perhaps take for granted. So, the plants that feature in my film are from a local park that I would visit frequently during lockdown, because that was the closest place for us to go to be able to walk or run, and I suddenly became really fascinated with those plants. Yeah, I've seen them numerous times before, and it's not so much that I didn't pay attention to them, but I noticed that I would look at them differently. So the same thing with my cat, which I have filmed numerous times over and over. I have tons of 16mm Super 8 digital footage of my cat, but somehow filming him during lockdown felt very differently, because I'd obviously spent more time at home. We've all been locked in our houses, that I felt like my negotiation of a space with the cat also became different. So he somehow was different when I was filming him this time around, or perhaps I'm just projecting this, but he certainly tolerated me following him with various cameras much more than he did in the past. So I think, but in terms of, macro looking at things the macro way as artists. I can't speak for others, but I certainly think that, you know, we ought to revisit our relationships with so many different things. I mean, you think about COVID and the impact it had on the environment, on sustainability, and, you know, there's bigger questions as to, you know, how we contribute to the world by maybe not doing certain things, maybe not traveling quite so much, maybe not getting on a plane when you just fancy visiting New York. You know, not that I would quite do that, but you know, that there's lots of things there to investigate. There's lots of our daily doings, you know, the idea that, you know, in some ways, many things during COVID have been good for the environment, but at the same time, you know, there's been problems with recycling, there's problems with lots of other things. And, you know, I think we have to, I suppose what I'm trying to say is that we ought to investigate our own actions on a micro level, because there's this idea that, you know, we have to be changing the world, but I think we have to start from ourselves. Again, I'm speaking for myself here in particular. So, you know, investigating one's own actions on you know, daily basis, I think that's really important. Yeah.
Cool. You just said before that you start paying attention to things like, I don't know, like your cat, or these little things we like every day we don't really pay attention to, or we just skip. And of course your work, it deals with this issue, and I want to ask you what experiences you think we can experience or achieve, or what kind of different experiences when we change focus or we change perspective. What does that change of perspective, or when we look closer, has to offer for us in an experience level, in your opinion?
Again, I can't, you know, I don't really want to speak for other people or the artists, but I suppose for me it's maybe connecting or reconnecting with your surroundings in a more meaningful way, that, you know, you don't, maybe, you know, you try and appreciate what you have that's around you. There's, you know, and I'm a big traveler. I love traveling, and like I said, you know, a lot of my work is particular place specific, so it relies on travel. But at the same time, you know, maybe I don't need to travel that much for the time being, right? Maybe I need to focus on what's around me, and I think there's some great things around me that I've taken for granted in the past, that maybe, you know, they're worthwhile investigating right now, and thinking about how, you know, for example, there's been a bigger focus on the local, so how local people around, for example, where we live in London, we've been seeing many more friends that are locally based, so we don't necessarily have to travel throughout the whole of London to see each other. We started talking about, at the moment this is just talking, but talking about forming little societies of local artists where we could feedback on each other's work, where we can show the work, maybe, you know, project it on somebody's garage, which is going to be more difficult right now that the weather is going to get colder. But, you know, just, I suppose, trying to focus on, again, what's in a closer proximity to where you are, without also losing a sight of obviously a bigger picture. But yeah, I think that's for me the making of Uchronia, and I'm trying to think about how I can make Uchronia too right now. But that's very much been about that, you know, about the local, about what's really physically also close to you.
There's gonna be an Uchronia number 2.
Well, there's gonna be a lockdown number 2, so I think that's gonna be Uchronia number 2.
Well, thank you so much for all your answers. They're very, very interesting. I've got one last question. It's about, well, the BIM theme this year, it's based on the look. And I want to ask you, this is more of a general question. It's not about Uchronia specifically, but when you face a new artistic project, or you start to work with something different, where do you look first? It's like, yeah, again, it's like a metaphor, but what's like what's the look in sort of like the direction you take? Clear, maybe
well, I suppose I could just answer maybe on the basis of my recent work, or how I've been working more recently. So I think certainly, you know, I'm very interested in context and history, and, you know, how things happen and why they happen. But I think I'm mostly interested in people and people's stories and people's experiences and how you can turn something that's, you know, maybe very place specific or very context specific, but how you can turn it into more of a universal story so we can all, you know, I suppose, connect on the basis of some shared experiences. And yeah, so I think that's where I look. And I think, you know, the BIM thing this year is fantastic. I was thinking about it the other day, actually, when, you know, you pass people on the street and we're all wearing masks, and, you know, normally you can look at a person's expression and you know, the whole face speaks. Is, you know, I like the eyes, but I also like the mouth, and you look at people's faces in general, and suddenly you just see those fragments of faces, and it's kind of, you know, I suppose slightly disturbing, and, you know, anxiety driving, that you can't really, in some ways you don't know what people are thinking almost, because you can't see the full expressions. So, you know, but at the same time you do focus on the eyes more. And I remember, you know, I was in a yoga class recently, and for the first time our teacher said, turn around and face one another, and everybody was so freaked out. We're like, what? We actually have to look at each other? And you know, we were really also close to one another, not wearing masks, but you know, in a close safe proximity, the legal distance. But yeah, and everybody was commenting on it after that. It was an experience that, you know, we in some ways were not prepared for. We were very much welcome, but we weren't prepared for. So yeah, that was an interesting one. But yeah, I think to go back to your question, I certainly, you know, I look for people's stories, and I look for, you know, I suppose I look for some corresponding experiences and emotions that perhaps can, you know, can be drawn out of those experiences, because there is this whole thing about, you know, experimental film somehow being devoid of emotion, or if you show an emotion in experimental film, then that's like you entering into a realm of feature film, or somehow that's a weaker film. But I hugely disagree with that. I think there's plenty of space for emotions in experimental film, and I guess that's what my work is trying to do.
Thank you, Kamila, so much for everything you're saying, for your time. It's all very interesting. I want to talk about well, sound design of your work. I don't know if Rob is here with us.
Can Rob be with us, or does he have to be interviewed separately?
It has to be separate, but I need to know if he's here first, and if I'll be allowed again to invite him.
Yes, but okay, so I can log out, right? But before I do, I just want to say thank you very much, everybody at BIM. Thank you, Andreas, Gabriela. Thank you, and your team. I think so. Thank you.
Thank you. I wasn't kicking you out, though. I was just asking if Rob was here with us to, yeah, introduce him later. But it's been a great pleasure to have you here, and I'm very pleased to be able to make these questions, and we're very grateful for your time and for sharing this, well, first interview experience, because this was the first of this year's BIM, so that's why it was a bit dodgy, fuzzy, I don't know.
No, that's fine. But yes, good luck with all the rest of the interviews, and enjoy Rob. He will talk to you about sound. I'm sure he's got a lot to say about sound for Ukrainia. But yes, okay. All right, so I'll log out now.
Thank you, Kamila, very much for joining us.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, bye.
Thank you.